certainly watching films is a waste of time, really. Although there is an aspect of art in it. What does that mean? And certainly listening to music is probably haram, and probably the kind of music I listen to is really haram. So okay, I'm been doing that. So, but back to the question of informational overload, and to take that my life how it is right now, which I'm living with a person who has half the time no concept of where they are or who they are. You know, you're some people have that dementia type of problem for various reasons. This particular issue is age related, but it's the same thing. If you could be somebody has a head injury and you're taking care of them, it puts you in a certain perspective, especially if you're tied down to that situation 24/7. And I think it's I'm not going to go into that deeply, but it's many positive aspects of that. But it does throw you off as far as the time space continuum question. Like, well, you're living with somebody who is out of the time space continuum, and you're trying to deal with that and deal with your own problems. It can be rather heady. So I think that is I get this informational overload. Now this is just I'm saying my situation right now. Throughout my life, I've had other things that bring me up into the limit of informational overload, where I get to that point and I just kind of shut down. And a lot of that has to do with my inability to, or whatever, if you want to call it awkward social awkwardness, or I like to say avoidant personality disorder. If you want to look that up, avoidant personality disorder. That's me. I'm the poster child. Okay. What the answers are to all this, I don't know. I think people find themselves in situations where, whatever, they're a slave, or they're impoverished, or they're in a wheelchair, whatever. They have whatever in their intellectual problems. But they work within that. And Islam, because, Islam is the foundation of our approach to life, or it should be as Muslims, then you take all these different situations and you say, well, Islam is for everybody, so it has to include everyone. That's the successful person and the person in the gutter. The question is that person who's in the gutter going to do within the context of his life acts that are pleasing to Allah? So problems aside, but I will say that I am wasting much of my time in my pursuits, and this is like the propensity of human beings to follow after the dunya, to neglect the important things, and to at the same time deceive themselves into thinking that they're accomplishing something. And actually, the Quran does say that the worst people are those who doing evil yet throughout their lives, yet they are thinking that they are doing good. You see this a lot with Christians. I know you don't have a lot of Christians in your country, but the Christians do that a lot. They're very self-satisfied with the fact that God loves them and they're going to go straight to heaven. And they really, it's a very simplistic way of looking at life, but they really feel this way. So if you say these people are going to come before their Creator and they're going to learn that their religion was ridiculous, and they're not going to have an answer for that because they had thought their whole life they were doing what was right. We have to check ourselves, and just me saying what I'm not doing right is not good enough, because you have to not just acknowledge that, well, gee, maybe I'm a hypocrite, but what am I doing to change that in concrete form, the concrete reality? Am I rambling? Yes, probably. So let's see. I've talked about Charles and his nudism. I've talked about procrastination somewhat, information overload. Now, Now, the informational overload question, how that affects my relationships. Well, because I have relationship problems, um, yes, I think that's why I keep away from having long-term relationships with people because I reach a certain point with them where I just have to turn it off or I have to be by myself. You know, it's not something that I like, but it is a reality because I have no long term relationships other than people I have in my family. And these are people I'm tied to that I would not have a relationship with otherwise, you know. I mean, I'm kind of the guy that goes up in the hills, you know, and he's the man in the hills. Yeah. But that's not to say that I don't want something different. It's just the way it is. And if in America, you know, there's not a lot of social structure per se. It's very individualized. And you would think with millions of Muslims here, that could be different, that they would be forging the new society based upon community, but that's not true. They're forging a society based upon making money. Okay. But we won't get into that. That's a totally different issue and totally different subject. And I apologize because there's a light shining right in my face, and I don't know how this is going to look. Um, but to bring up one question about, because this is totally off subject. Okay, I think I covered, I think I covered in a very rambling manner the question of why I haven't been making videos because I just can't force myself to do it because I'm a major procrastinator because I have all these problems. Okay, sorry, I'm okay now. So I think we can get off this subject and start answering some of the the inquiries. Inquiry minds want to know. But I do want to bring up one thing I wrote down about Juma, and I had mentioned about my, you know, I've discussed my history as a Muslim and my history with the Muslim community and my dissatisfaction with the Muslims here in Southern California. A lot of that has to do with my personal problems. In other words, I'm relating to the situation from my perspective, right? And of course, who I am, I mean, I am who I am, and then I have to take this person and confront a very complex situation with Muslims here in SoCal. And it gets to be a very complex experience. And but there are definite problems here, and really a complete lack of desire on the part of most people who immigrate here to have a Islamic community. They don't come to the United States to you know, bring Islam here. Although some of them are religious enough to want to be with other Muslims, so they come to the masjids or they establish masjids, and then suddenly they have this terrible problem where these people who are not a part of their culture, let's say you're an Arab, these Pakistani people come, or these American black people come with their own sets of ideas, or somebody like me, and we have a certain cultural experience which has nothing to do with our cultural experience. And the question of culture and religion and what's your expectations, and I mean it gets so stupid and crazy and so complicated that you wonder what, and the people argue about things that are just, I mean, it's shameful. You have literally in this part of the country with Muslims, huge percentage of the Muslims are running liquor stores or stores where they, I mean, and it's like can't talk about the subject. It's a taboo subject, or it's very strange.